I've seen things most people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy, and for today's session, we have my partner in crime, my friend and yours, Stop the FOMO. FOMO, how are you, bro?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. We've had this conversation about the S95D. We've had it in person when we were there at CES when we first saw it. We've had it over dinner. We've had it on live streams. And now we're doing an actual tech therapy on it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to set the stage. And I'm going to set the stage actually with the S95B. For those of you that are new, welcome to the channel. This is a long form discussion. This is not a review, but we are going to talk about it as when the S95B launched a few years ago. FOMO was the first on our platform to have it. He called me and said, "Are you ready to see this bad boy?" And I saw it. I was blown away by it. You can tell by the thumbnail. It beat up the A90J, which at the time was a legendary OLED. A few months later, it was hit with some updates, kind of slowed its pace a little bit. Still an amazing TV. FOMO, the very next year, the S95C blows up, comes out, goes against the G3. Again, we were the first to show that on our platform. And then we had some dropouts, some full bandwidth issues with the One Connect box.
For gaming. So gamers were not happy.
For gaming. And then we did have some other dropouts with the picture for some other people. The point is the S90C was there at a value and became the TV we recommended the most, actually, I think by the end of the year. So this year we knew, and the S95C is excellent, don't get me wrong, still a great TV, but it wasn't the one we recommended over the S90C. Such a good value. Then FOMO, we go to CES, we shoot our content, we're running around. We both saw the S95D. One Connect box is there. I put up a short video. You and I are chatting about it, and then we see all the comments. And we know the S95D needs to have a win this year. And why it's easy, or should be easy, is you and I know what Samsung Display can do unleashed. We knew the S95D wasn't worried about the A95L in the distance. That TV is out. We know the G4 is bringing the heat with a new processor and 3000 nits. So we're waiting for the S95C to do some damage.
S95D.
And we saw that it had a pretty amazing S95D, my apologies. It had a very amazing anti-reflective screen, but it was matte. And the comments were absolute chaos from just my short video. I want you to take it from there because you and I are on opposing sides of this, but this is something that I want you and I to have a sit down about because you think it's a good thing or you're for it. Tell me why and just tell me your initial thoughts on the S95D.
So the S95D, this year's flagship OLED from Samsung, has one big change, and that is that anti-reflection. And to give you guys context, I get a lot of personal DMs, direct messages from a lot of you asking about Samsung's anti-reflective layer last year, actually for the last several years, right? Whether it's the QN90R, the 95B, 90A, it doesn't matter. And then the S95B and the S95C, always the same question. Is that rainbow reflection thing still there? Because we love its anti-reflection, but in my house, it doesn't work. That rainbow flare makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Can't Samsung do something better? And I'm like, yeah, you know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. So obviously, I wasn't the only one who heard these complaints because these consumers, they're paying for the best. They're willing to pay whatever because this is flagship. And so this year, they experimented. Only the S95D has it. Now, the question is this better than the rainbow flare? Because these are people with glare. They want anti-glare. I'm not talking about the people who are in the dark. They don't complain about the rainbow flare. They don't even know it's there, right? But for those who are getting, you know, the 77-inch, the 65, they put it in the room because the S95B and the S95C is designed to be watched in a bright room because QD-OLED is that bright. And they're putting it in a normally lit room. And I'm getting complaints about this, whatever it is, rainbow effect. I see it. You know, I live with it. But a lot of people, they want something better. And I think Samsung is trying to see how many of those people are there. Now, you and I, look at your room. It's like practically dark. Look at my rock. I'm sitting in the dark.
You're actually like Batman right now.
We have no issues, but are we that audience? And for the audience, which is most people, because you see it in the question, hey, I'm in a bright room. What TV should I get? It's always because we've trained you guys. What's your viewing environment? So now they come in with, I'm in a
They
man
start
cave.
with that. Yeah.
Right. They start with, I'm in a man cave. I'm in a dedicated room. I got light control, or I'm in a bright, crazy kitchen, whatever. For those people that start with, I'm in a bright room, I think the S95D will be a hit, honestly.
Yeah.
And for everyone else, like, you got options. You got the G4, you got the A80L, the
Of course.
A95L, the S90C, the S90D. No one's making you get the S95D.
No, and I totally agree. Where I will say, FOMO, why I brought up our journey with the S95B is that Quantum.OLED was the jump many of us were waiting for. And the S95B, though the updates and it was nerfed and it was, in the end of the TV, still amazing, and it was kind of brought back to where it should be.
Right.
The S95C expanded further on that. Except the S95C did have an S90C behind it. That was
and what did we say? The S90C is actually the successor of the S95B. It went to 95B to 90C, and then the 95C is a completely different TV for a different audience. One connect box,
one
right?
connect box.
So I think a lot of people need to understand that, that the S90D is there and the S90C, and those are the successor of the S95B. Yeah.
B. So the S90D or C, we're going to be doing this all day, which is so interesting about it, but also a double-edged sword, is the S90D is sold out. 77-inch. If your store doesn't have it, they cannot order it. It's gone.
Yeah. It's been gone at Costco since the break, right? Since the holiday break. It's
so
done.
People that said, okay, well, I want it because it doesn't have the one connect box. It became the only option for some gamers. Now, I think if you have it, the S95C is amazing if you have it, but these little things have caused people to go for the S90C, which is now gone.
Yeah.
So going into this new year, the S95D. Now, I'm in a very bright room with a WRGB OLED. There are times where this TV is a mirror, and I just deal with it because I don't want the contrast or the blacks to be affected. Now, the S95B and C, FOMO, and we both have shown this, that whether it's the polarizer or forget about the rainbow effect, there are times when the sun hits it perfect where it actually has like a fragmented, jagged look to it.
You showed me that at Value Electronics. Oh my gosh, what happened here? It's unwatchable.
Yeah, so that's very rare that it happens, but the way they're combating that, the technology with this coat is actually phenomenal. We had a private showing of it. I'll let FOMO describe it because he knows the gentleman that talked to us about it. But he did have it go against a WRGB OLED, not a QD-OLED. And the results were phenomenal, but there was one hitch, FOMO, that really bothered me that we went back and looked. Can you explain what we saw?
Yeah.
Because it did cause me to have pause.
Yeah. Florian, I consider him a friend. So Florian,
and he is great, by the way, brilliant guy.
Very much so. Right, he's a scientist. He has software for color grading HDR. A lot of you, if you watch my older videos, I'm able to capture the various the spectrum of the brightness and all that stuff. That's using his software. So Florian, he has a software company to help color graders with HDR. So he's very attuned to how HDR works on many different TVs, and his latest reference TV technology is QD-OLED. He loves it. And so they asked him to come back this year to do this demonstration on the anti-reflective screen. And so he brought in the science. He brought in the white paper. Why is anti-reflective so important? The distraction that causes eye fatigue, these are things that I never thought about. So he was showing us the example. He has the glossy, almost semi-gloss to gloss, right? But you could still see the reflections very clearly. He had ring lamps everywhere, so you could see the ring lamps on all the TVs. And he says, look, your eyes, you may not notice it, are constantly focusing and defocusing because you can't tell if it's an artifact of the glare or is it part of the content.
Yeah.
Because having the matte screen or the anti-reflective S95D next to it, you could tell, oh, that's not the content. But if that TV wasn't there, oftentimes in this kind of like murky near black, wait, is that my window or is it from the content? And so that's a distraction. And
of course,
I acknowledge that, right? But that's why we watch in a light controlled room. But in a room that's not light controlled, that's what you saw. However, what you and I noticed was all that brightness hitting the matte screen lifted the blacks of the entire screen, right? It distributed the light, the ambient light, it absorbed it, and everything that should be perfect black is slightly dark gray. I mean, it's noticeable. even without that TV, you could tell, wait, that's not perfectly black. Now, this was with the lights on and everything. So when you have all that white light noise, it may not be an issue because you might prefer no reflections at all in return for a slight lift black. But what did you say? Okay, turn off the lights. Because he said, look, dark room, it looks exactly the same. It's fine. And you're
So,
like,
yeah.
okay, let's turn off the lights. So I'm going to ask you, what did you see? Because he took the challenge. Florian's like, I'm game. Let's turn off all the lights. And he thought it looked nearly identical. The word is nearly. How nearly did it look for you? I thought it looked okay.
So back to what you were saying when the lights were on it was jaw-dropping, FOMO, because on the WRGB OLED, now it wasn't compared to last year's S95. It was compared to a competitor. I imagine it could be a Sony or an LG.
Right.
Very glossy screen. And they both were on with the same content. It was like a light. It was an eyeball. It was very black. It was very clean, beautiful, colorful, right? I wish I had that demo. When the light hit it, the shocking thing was 100% of the image on the S95C was visible. There was almost no glare at all, meaning that if you were in the brightest room possible, football game, whatever you want, there was no glare. I mean, you literally don't lose anything.
Yeah.
The WRGB OLED, you lost probably 90% of the image.
Okay, wait. Stop. Behind you on your TV, I see a reflection. That ring lamp is distracting me. I can't stop.
I was going to point it out, actually. And you know what's funny is it's actually dark in here. So if you were if somebody was watching the couch behind me, they'd be like, Jesus, is that a sun up here? I'm like, here, FOMO, just block it. So here we are looking at 100% of the image, but slightly, not even slightly lifted. It was quite lifted, but everything was there. Right. And then you looked at the WRGB OLED, which was crystal clear, but we could see each other because we were just looking at us.
You saw our shirts, you saw everything.
So at that moment, I still preferred WRGB OLED because what was showing was cleaner, jet black, detailed, and colorful. So I challenged Florian and just said, well, I see the black level has dissipated a bit. He's like, well, look, in the dark, it's nearly identical. I said, well, do you mind shutting off the light for me? He did rewind the demo, shut it off, and this is where I was hurt. Before we even started, the TV screen is so matte, FOMO, that it looks like cloth. It's so this blind shootout that everybody wants us to do can't happen because you're like, that's the one. It looks like it's got a fabric on it. It's so almost has a feeling to a texture to it. I didn't touch it, but lights come on, lights go off. As the lights go off, I could clearly see the WRGB looked better. It seemed to have more color. It seemed cleaner and sharper. This I would maybe be okay if they were both WRGB OLEDs. One is a QD-OLED that didn't look more colorful, did not look brighter. It looked like a really nice LED to me. And I've said this to you many times with bad HDR gaming, if the blacks are compromised on an OLED even a little bit, it defeats the purpose of an OLED. Now talk to me, because you saw me go, and that's where this conversation started.
And I think the issue is they're side by side. So when you bring, when it comes into Roberts or when we bring it into our respective
we will see
studios,
very soon.
Right? I think without a direct glossy comparison, when the lights go out, I think it'll look phenomenal. And with the lights on, it would look pretty good.
Amazing.
Now, I have a frame, right? A lot of
let's segment quickly into this one part of it, though. The frame, for those of you who don't know, is a TV that many of you walk into the store and go, ugh, contrast ratio looks bad. It is probably one of their number one, or at least their top sellers, right, FOMO? So go now from the frame, because you do have one.
I have one, and it's my logo that's behind me. Not in this video, but if you see some of my other Talking Head videos, you'll see like the Stop the FOMO logo behind me. That's the frame. And why do I use that? Because I have issues with glare, because I have lighting everywhere, and it bounces off the TV, just like your ring lamp. And that's why I use it, is to avoid that. And I have literally a light 3 feet away. You would normally see that light, but because of the frame, can't even tell it's there. That's why you can see my background all lit up. Wow, there's no reflection. That's why I chose the frame. And my friends who have the frame, by the way, they bought the frame not realizing it's anti-glare. They just like the frame because they have these options. Of,
it's got a frame on it.
Custom frame option wood, like they love it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best TV I've ever had." And, not knowing OLED, nothing, they love the
Yeah,
frame, and they say,
of
I
course.
gotta get a bigger frame." And so for most consumers, it's those little things, right? It's got the little custom frame around it. It's got this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. So I think the S95D is talking to that same customer who wants a TV that's flat to the wall, the one connect box. Now it looks like a painting because it's got texture. They can
Yep.
display art on it, and it is the best looking canvas type TV out there.
Yeah.
Period. No compromises when it comes to that type of TV. And you know how expensive the frame is? It costs more than the S90C at the same size. It's $2,000 for like a 75-inch. So people are used to that pricing for the frame, and now they're getting QD-OLED. So like they're selling the frames like hotcakes at that price. We're coming from an enthusiast standpoint where we don't touch the frame. These people are paying extra. The frame costs as much as like a QN95C, which is about the same or more than the S90C. So I'm looking at that market. Now, would I get it for myself? Obviously not, because we're enthusiasts. We look at the content. But for the average Joe who has it in his bright home, hanging on a wall, hanging in the kitchen, he's going to love that TV. Even if he
And
came from a Q9FN or, even from an OLED, the infinite contrast is still almost there.
and
So,
this is where we'll segue, because there's a clear delineation between enthusiast and the common person watching. Now, the
mhm,
common person is not watching this video. Tech therapy videos are typically for our communities, our joint communities. We've had this conversation on live streams, by the way, but they get interrupted by a lot of the questions. So,
by the common man.
yeah, exactly.
There you
So,
go.
what I think is the misstep here, and I agree with you 100%. I think it's going to be successful, but what's successful in the world isn't what we recommend
Mhm,
daily to our enthusiasts, because we look for value and picture quality and high end. My challenge is putting this on your highest end.
mhm.
I much rather see it on the S90, give it a shot, or maybe do a completely separate model.
Or if I was Samsung, my response to you, wait a minute, this is not our highest end. That's the QN900D.
So,
Fine.
yes. So
Right? Right.
so and
They
that
got the magic, the AI
yes,
processing. So
and that
that is the TV.
And that was actually in the presentation right before the QD-OLED one, which I did a separate video. I'll link that one below, on 8K being the true flagship again, which again, I think is a misstep, because I had mentioned Chirag and the Samsung display crew, which, we saw again, private walkthrough. And I can say this emphatically, seeing their Samsung display TVs unleashed, meaning
Mhm.
it's their version. There's nothing, the manufacturers, in case you guys didn't know, the A95L is a Samsung displayed as a QD OLED display. Then each manufacturer puts their magic on it.
Mhm.
We watched the QD OLED this year go against last year. So that would be an S95 or an A95 versus this year, which would be 3,000 nits. It destroyed it. And I don't mean WRGB OLED, I mean annihilated it. Why my concern is now I'm looking at an S95C, presumably a new QD OLED, go
Right.
against
The
a
third gen. The
third
third gen
gen,
best panel.
going against a WRGB OLED. And the goal was to make it look the same. And it
Okay.
didn't do that.
I think
Jump in, baby, jump in.
maybe you actually raised something. Maybe the S95D has so much headroom for performance. Extra color saturation. No, the contrast obviously might be a slight drop, but if you add the extra luminance, the extra color saturation, maybe it offsets some of the drawbacks of the matte finish, the anti-reflection film, to image quality, where it can still be slightly ahead of the G3. They haven't seen the G4, but it still beats the G3 head to head, with that slight compromise to the blacks, because I think that is noticeable when side by
Yes.
side, but they're willing to give that up because everything else that's accomplished is just so good this year. So, you know what? We got to watch it side by side. I mean, these are all, in theory, right? I'm
Yeah, of
putting on my
course.
my product manager hat from Samsung. This is what I'm promoting, and I see it. We feel this is the strategy. This is what's gonna sell. But our side-by-side live stream that's gonna kick off at Valley Electronics in a month or two, that's what people are gonna watch.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see our reaction, because I'm gonna try to react from the point of view of the common consumer. because I know you're a hardcore enthusiast, but let's put it in where it was designed to
course.
be,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We'll put it in a dark room, yell at it in a dark room, but then we bring it to the bright room. Now, how does it look? Now, how does it look with gaming and all that stuff? So it's so hard to predict. I mean, on paper, you're right that there's something suffers. But
to your point, when I do my Best Buy walkthroughs, I always show the frame. And every time I show it, I'm like, here it is, because you want to see it. Without fail, they're like, oh. And we saw different iterations also, not just from Samsung. We saw from Hisense and some others. That technology.
Hisense has the canvas, and I was so impressed by the way Hisense did the canvas as well.
And
why would they do it? If Samsung wasn't selling them like hotcakes, Hisense would not even go there. Yep.
And what sells is so different than us as home theater enthusiasts. Sound bars versus speakers. Right. So the enthusiasts don't buy much. And, quick story about Sony, the Z9D Master Series, the TV that we all love, this TV that we all enjoyed. The Z9F was a clear step back. But in terms of sales, it introduced the X wide viewing angle. It cut the contrast ratio in half. It introduced more blooming but shadow detail. But that's what the consumer said they wanted. And that's
the
where
reviewers all hated it, by the way.
All hated it. And
every reviewer like, what the heck?
And the enthusiasts. But think about this. That version kept going. That X wide viewing angle was on it every year for a long period of time.
Oh, I think we're still cursed with it.
We may still, I think we still actually have it.
Did anyone say it went away?
I don't think it did. But now what this makes very interesting for our narrative is here comes the G4. Now is 3,000 nits,
very exciting.
Exciting. New processor.
Yes.
Samsung S95D, old processor. 8K TV, QLED 900D, new processor. So now, as you've just mentioned, which is a good point, the S95D is actually competing with the G3. Where the G4 now has the field completely open, 83-inch, and it's ready.
With a stand, so suddenly
with the stand and everything.
Finally.
But it's the only one in front of it is the A95L, which we already know what that can do. So my concern, and this is for us, is we recommend these TVs every day. And by the comments just in the community post that I did for this video, everyone's like, no way. I'm getting messages on Twitter from people saying, yuck. So what is your say to them?
Okay, let me say this. I had no problem with the G3 brightness, by the way. I mean, by the end of the year, and you guys all know this, I consistently said the G3 is the brightest OLED you can buy. If you need a bright OLED for sports, whatever, get the G3. If you need color luminance, accuracy, blah, 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 get the A95L or the S90C. But if you want sports brightness in a bright room, you don't want dimming, you watch in standard mode, the G3 kills it. And so LG doubled down, and now the G4 is slightly brighter, but we never asked for that brightness. What we wanted was the AI processor. And I'm glad they did the brightness, right? Because Sony introduced the whole 4,000 nit is the future. Okay, I got it. That's cool. But they already won the brightness war. They didn't need to double down, right? They didn't need to do it. Now, adding the AI processor is a huge jump. So that's great. So Samsung, no differently. They won the color luminance war, right? They don't need to do anything differently. So they want to do this matte screen.
But with a matte finish, FOMO, do they really have the color luminance? If the contrast ratio gets hit, if it gets hit at all?
We will measure it. I guarantee we're going to measure the color luminance before the S95, because we have the numbers for the S95C. We'll see if the S95D, we'll have the team there measuring it. They're going to let us know. And they might say, you know what? Perceptually, maybe it's not there, but the meters say it's there. So it must be there, but we'll see.
So here's my last question for you in regards to this, as we recommend. It now has a matte finish, or it's not called matte, it's called anti-reflective coating. So I keep calling it matte.
Yeah, and some people call it satin, but come on. I really it's like eggshell.
It's
eggshell satin.
It's like American Psycho. That's bone. That's bone. So let's go into this. S95C, S95D had a lot to prove. Not a new processor.
Nope.
One Connect box is still there. So the double negative is a new matte finish. Do you think it's the same One Connect box? So now my point is, for gamers, FOMO, if they do say, hey, you know what, I'm cool with the matte finish, then you're saying, actually, the One Connect box is still there. Without the new processor, that will probably remain unchanged. We're thinking that'll still be the same bandwidth. What do you think?
The S90C continues to be my choice for gaming.
Which is
Now,
sold out.
which is sold out, so it'll be the S90D.
Okay.
Now, and the S89C, to be fair, is identical with some minor audio, whatever, but the image quality is the same, really identical. So if you have access to Best Buy, $2,000, S89C, $7,000, run, get it now because it'll be sold out shortly.
Yeah.
But the G4 introduces 144 hertz gaming,
Yes.
which we're going to assume will not have the dropout issues
No
of
One
the
Connect box.
S95C, right? No One Connect box.
Their own SoC.
And so maybe that alone, it wins on 144 capability that the S95D and C, well, D will likely struggle with because same One Connect box, but we'll see because that's a small population. We make such a big deal out of it only because gamers make a big deal. I honestly don't know that many PC gamers other than you. Everyone else is a PS5, right? And among even the PS5 people, and I think gaming tech or other like TKK, they complained they got dropouts.
Oh, yeah, I know
right?
TK. He had really bad
with
dropouts.
PS5 or Xbox Series. I mean, just basic console gaming, and it's not always 144, right? It's 120, 60, whatever. But it definitely, your mileage may vary. But at the end, we all concluded: look, play it safe. Get the S90C, and this year get the S90D and so forth. So I think the S90 series continues to be not just a value, but the gamer's choice. But the S95D really isn't designed for gamers per se. It's designed for interior designers, the artist's choice, the guy with a bit too much money. And that's fine, right? The One Connect box.
The couch goes over here. I love the way this room looks. Here's my flagship, Sam's. So here's devil's advocate for you. I know you and I predicted that we may see the S90D take a step back in terms of maybe not being so close because these companies do need, like as we said this with the C4, the C4 was not elevated, I think, to give the G4 more room to really be on its own.
Separate itself.
We were a little worrisome in regards to maybe perhaps the S90D. Now here comes even worse devil advocate. Is that going to be the new panel? Is that going to be last generation? So that really causes a lot of confusion that the enthusiasts are concerned about. So my point with this is then if the G4 has no One Connect box, it's 3,000 nits, NVIDIA, also it has HDI-G. Now we're swinging back that way for the gaming population and the movie watcher population because you'll have a new processor. Old processor for the Samsung, matte finish, One Connect box. It just sounds like a lot to overcome. S90C maybe being an older, I can just see a lot of math being done. And I know, and again, I'll put you on the spot here because I know we've done how many of these live streams together. By the end of the year, the S95C was almost never recommended.
Because of price, because of value.
Price to value.
That's all it is.
So I'm very curious in the hours to come when you and I, after our little mini shootout with Robert at Value Electronics, I am dying to see how many times you recommend it. Because it's going to be like, and if you're outside. And really quick though, this anti-coding, I will tell you, is incredible.
Yeah,
not only
very well.
Not only is it incredible, but it beats the QN95C last year. Any of those other TVs that were great anti-reflection, this TV
no rainbow. There is no rainbow
at all.
No rainbow.
But if it stops being an OLED even a little bit, is that going to be too much for many of you? Phone, well, give me a parting shot on our way out. This is about a 30-minute session, which I think is good. What do you have to say to the crew right now? I mean, let's keep it. Okay. We'll keep it.
Okay. So
what's your parting goodbye to our community?
My parting goodbye is, what is your budget? If it's S90D money, the S95D was never in your wheelhouse to begin with. So, I mean, you're going to bellyache, but the reality is you were never going to get it because you wanted the best value, which is the S90D. The S90D will take, and whether it's a second gen QD-OLED or third gen, doesn't matter. Second gen was awesome. Third gen, okay, maybe a little bit brighter, but if it's not, it's still going to be a great value because guess what? They're going to mark it down even further. So if it's second gen, it's going to be very inexpensive. Well, not very inexpensive, but you're going to get a good deal because that was an older panel. It doesn't matter. So if you're, I'm going to throw this out there. If your budget's $2,000 for a 77-inch S90D, because this thing's going to be over 3,000. Now, if you're over 3,000, whether you go with the G4, the G3, or the S95D, now we're talking. Now, the G3 still continues to be the brightest TV, brighter than the S95C for sure. Brighter than the S95D, that remains to be seen. But then for that price, you can get the G4. And I may end up recommending the G4 at the 77-inch if the price is the same, because for most people, they're going to appreciate the brightness. They're not going to see, or if it's in a bright room, then maybe the matte finish. I mean, so this is hard for me because
That's why I asked you.
if they need brightness sports without dimming, hockey at its brightest setting, G4 for, you don't have to worry about anti-reflection because it's hockey. There's no reflections in hockey anyway. But if you're worried about anti-reflection and you watch mixed content that's not just sports, and that makes the G4 identical to the S95D in terms of peak brightness, all this stuff, because content, same peak brightness, they can both handle it. It comes down to matte finish versus glossy, and that's personal. So my prediction is all of us would embrace the G4. You and I will recommend the G4. Or if they complain hard about anti-reflection issues, I would say, you know what? If your Best Buy or wherever allows you to do a swap, why don't you start with the S95D or start with the G4? And if start with the G4, if the reflections don't bother you, switch. Or start with the S95D if the lack of blah, 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 if you don't notice the lack of contrast, or the slight drop in contrast, keep it. But for me, I do not like the One Connect box because it introduces an extra point of failure. And I've always said that.
For all of them, every model. Yep.
Every model. So for me, the One Connect box is more of the reason not to get the S95D. But again, interior designer, you want to hide the box, you want it thin against the wall, then it's going to be slightly thinner than the G4. So those are the things that people actually will consider because that's what they're paying the premium for, is those extra little features. Because I know some people, One Connect box, they need to have it. That's it. They don't care if it's matte. Yeah. They need it. They'll even go after S95C because they need that. And they're not a PC gamer, so really care about dropouts.
So what I love about your answer, and we're going to see this too. Again, this is without the shootout with standing, our little shootout with Robert, is it still sounds like it's going to be recommended to a very small audience in regards to our audience. Basically, I want the One Connect box and I'm watching on my porch outside. Now, what I'm going to represent here is the enthusiasts in our communities. Now, not Caleb. Caleb liked it, I think. I think you said Flat Panels HD liked it. I know Brandon liked it. Be the installer, a buddy who watches TV like in a bright room. For what I've seen in my videos, and your videos, is right off the bat, glossy to them looks more high end. TV off looks better. The contrast ratio, whether it's true or not, seems higher regardless of OLED or mini LED. They want that gloss. They don't even like semi-gloss because it looks cheap. Now we're going full matte. And old processor, One Connect box, I think is going to be too much to overcome. I think G4 almost kind of wins out with the new processor being brighter and being glossy. I, even with the amazing anti-reflection, would never buy it because I think OLEDs, if they compromise contrast ratio even a point or black level a point, they're not OLEDs anymore. And also me seeing from Chirag and Samsung Display what a QD-OLED looks unleashed, I wish you guys could, as you guys have seen it on FOMO's videos in mind, a QD-OLED unleashed looks better than micro LED. I mean, it's unreal. So me knowing that TV's compromised because I've seen it in Samsung displays would bother me as somebody buying it. So I'll be recommending it. What's so funny is you and I will be recommending it to the same people. So, but as for us with our storylines, guys, stay tuned because we're going to have this actual competitors, and hopefully the S90D will be out around the same time. We're going to see the S95D go against the G4 in the bright room, which we did last year, in a dark room. But this year, I think we'll make sure, FOMO, we're actually in the sunshine to really see it. And you're going to see them both go against the A95L Sony Master Series QD-OLED. And look, I don't want any of these TVs to fail. I'm simply echoing what I would buy myself, considering I bought a WRGB OLED. I would not have put a QD-OLED in this room from Samsung. Sony's behaves differently because they have their extra little stuff on the screen or extra little mix. But I think it's a mistake from an enthusiast standpoint, but honestly, I think it'll be a resounding success from a financial standpoint, FOMO.
Well, I think the bet for me, I love car analogies. We're both car guys. You have the sports car with a sports suspension, and you could feel a dime when you drive over it. My mom would hate that car. She's like, wait, you paid extra to get rid of the suspension? And we're like,
Yeah.
no, yeah, actually, yes, I paid extra. But at the end of the day, some people's idea of an expensive car is luxury. The car floats, it absorbs all, I mean, it's
Yeah.
quiet. And then other people's idea of luxury is I want to hear the exhaust, right? They pay more for a louder exhaust, right?
Yeah.
They pay more for a harsher suspension because of the handling. And so the question is, what is that premium to you mean? And maybe that matte is the premium for them. And
I bet you're right.
right?
For the
Because
common person,
we're like
yes.
we're like a sports car. We're high performance. That
Yeah.
means to
No,
the
no cup holders.
right?
No
Cup holders, right?
no seat belts.
It's those Recaro seats, right?
Yeah.
No massage.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see how it turns out. This is our first tech therapy video of the year. I thought this
Yes.
would be a great conversation because this is what I know in my heart. Just because the last few years of working together, we'll be answering this question every single live stream because Samsung is the #1 TV brand in terms of sales overall. They are amazing and they know what they're doing as far as moving units. And I'll always say, FOMO, that saying about being a professional coach. If you listen to the fans, you'll be sitting with them. So enthusiasts, we don't sell TVs.
Right. Go for it on 4th down. Go for every fan. Go for it on 4th
we don't
down.
punt, baby. We don't punt. Put in that aging star. I love him.
Go for the 2-point conversion every single time. I don't care.
Draft that quarterback with the drug problem. We need him. Because he's popular.
Right.
But it'll always be that. And as I've always said to you guys in the comments, enthusiasts, we are not the majority. But it's what we are doing here. It's why we have channels like ours. But this will be a very fun thing. And you never know. The S95D might beat everything with this build.
What I'm looking forward to is you switching your position. Like, you know what?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Right? I mean,
well, you know what's funny? Well, I will say what's so great about, and I'll vouch for you in the same way. We are never emphatically right, or I'm never going to say I'm right. To say that we are wrong benefits everyone if we are. If I'm completely proven wrong by this and the thing is amazing and everybody loves it, I'll be happy to say good because we're rooting for them all. There's nobody that we want to see fail. I know Vizio is not on our list, but I had to add that.
Shot it.
Whack. FOMO, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. This is going to be a fun one. I can't wait. And I know for all you guys that made it this far, this is a long video, but I love you guys in the comments that are watching these premieres. The reason I like to do these with FOMOs out of a live stream is that we are uninterrupted and we can actually really hit the ball back and forth. I know you guys out there, but I love you guys that made it this far. FOMO, thank you so much. Check out FOMO's channel. You guys know who he is. Love you guys. And until the next video, have a great day. Take care.
Bye, guys.
It's better to burn out than to